Good afternoon. Welcome to the Long Live Third Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., a third parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bichard. Today I read the case Council of Alternative Political Parties versus Hooks, 121 F3D 876, Court of Appeals, 3rd Circuit, 1997. Friends, we are here for a main reason of advancing third parties. So let us advance third parties today and forevermore. The title of this case has the word alternative political parties. So let us address that. Our friends with the Oakland Greens once posed a question to us on our page. What do you think about calling third parties alternative parties instead of third parties? They argued alternative party suggests that there's more than just one alternative. When you say third party, it seems to suggest there is just one alternative to the two parties. I'm not decided on how I feel about this. So what do you think about this, friends? What do you think? The alternative parties in this case that joined together were the Green Party of New Jersey, the Natural Law Party, the New Jersey Conservative Party, the New Jersey Libertarian Party, the U.S. Taxpayers Party of New Jersey. What a motley crew of third parties forming a coalition. Way to go, friends. Way to go. So what happened here? What was the reason for the case? Let's read from the record. It says, quote, "This appeal requires us to review the district court's denial of preliminary injunctive relief. The district court concluded that the plaintiffs were likely to succeed on the merits of their claims and found that they would be irreparably harmed in the absence of preliminary relief. However, the court also found that the defendant would be harmed even more severely were preliminary relief to be granted and that the public interest disfavored such relief, although our standard of review is quite deferential." End quote. And then it also goes on to say, quote, "There are multiple plaintiffs in this case. The Council of Alternative Political Parties, in an unincorporated association representing 5 New Jersey alternative political parties, in scare quotes, the Green Party, the Natural Law Party, the Conservative Party, the Libertarian Party, and the U.S. Taxpayers Party. Each of these 5 alternative political parties is also a plaintiff. In addition, there are 27 individual plaintiffs, all of whom are either candidates desiring to run for state office as nominees of these alternative parties or are supporters of these parties." End quote. 27, that rocks. A lot of people coming together, a lot of momentum, a lot of force to get our point of view known. They discuss the law in New Jersey. It says it requires 54 days before the election for the signatures to be gotten. They address how governors need 800 signatures and 100 for state senate and 50 for General Assembly. They say this is the only way for them to get on the ballot. As we've discussed in other cases, other states have different ways. The deadline is in April, and our friends argued that, quote, "The April filing date imposes an unconstitutional burden on their right of free association, right to vote, and right to equal protection of the laws." End quote. I didn't see it mentioned explicitly here, but that seems to address the First and 14th Amendment, which is an issue that keeps popping up in these ballot access trials. Our friends, the third parties, alternative parties, however you want to address them, invoke the First and 14th Amendment. We love those. So we like to see that. At the district court, the district court favored the Secretary of State, saying that this law was fine. So how did this appeals court rule? They had some issues to bring up, and they had some points to make. They mentioned how in New Jersey you have to get 10% of votes in election to qualify as a party. They also state only the Republicans, those two parties, have been able to qualify since 1913. That is quite big. It sounds like New Jersey is not a good state for third parties, because most other states, as bad as they may be to us, at least they have some third parties getting on the ballot. Sometime in the last 100 years. The Secretary of State doesn't mince words, and they say one of their objectives is, quote, preserving the stability of the two-party system, end quote. Fortunately, the judges here did not find that persuasive. They didn't think that was justification for this law. We don't want to preserve the stability of the two-party system. We want to knock it down. And the duopoly is a hashtag on Twitter that we third parties like to use. So we don't want to preserve the stability of the two-party system. They are saying that the Secretary of State here doesn't have any good reasons for requiring the April filing deadline. They concede that the few signatures required makes this less of an issue, but still, it's not a good enough reason. They also talk about just because people get on the ballot doesn't mean the law is legitimate. That's a good point for us to consider. Because if the hurdle is high, it still could be a bad law, right? Yes. Guess what happened in the end, friends? Guess what? They say, quote, because all four factors granting plaintiffs preliminary relief, the district court's decision denying that the relief was not consistent with the sound exercise of discretion, thus we will reverse the district court's denial of such relief and enter an order directing the district court to issue a preliminary injunction requiring the secretary to accept any nominating petitions submitted on or before July 28, 1997 by a named candidate plaintiff or by a candidate of a political party plaintiff. End quote. What does that sound like, friends? That sounds like a victory for third parties or alternative parties, whatever you want to call them. And that is reason to beam. We need to pat these political parties, that diverse coalition of third parties, on the back. There's one judge that dissented, but it didn't matter in the end because our friends at these parties won. So if you know any of these people out there in New Jersey, maybe you could congratulate them. I plan to congratulate them in social media, which should be out there after this podcast is aired. God willing. So friends, let us proceed and advance. Long live third parties. Goodbye.